micromanage our employees. We do not attempt to manage how many hours you work a day or, where you do that. What we attempt to manage is output.
We don't use SAP here at this company. We're a bit small, but I mean, so you plug in your systems to a company's finance function, and it'll give you analytics, it'll give you suggestions, it'll give you forecasts.
Tech organizations are at the cutting edge of thinking, right? They know what's coming down the road. But weirdly, the people who are in charge of education and skills development, whether that be schools, universities, etc., are often lagging, right?
Good afternoon. I'm Matthew Burbidge, and I'm here with Genevieve Koolen, the Human Resources Director at SAP Africa. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Thanks for having me.
You joined SAP in 2019.
Correct.
And before that, you were the Chief Human Resources Officer at Neotel. So it was just in time for COVID.
Just in time. In fact, 4 or 5 months. And then slap bang into the pandemic. So yeah.
So, I mean, I remember that day quite well. When they sent us all home here, and so they sent you all home.
So interestingly, at SAP we had the good fortune or bad fortune of having patient 3, 4, and 5 in the country. So we actually shut down quicker than other companies did because we had a whole bunch of people on holiday in Italy, and then they all got COVID on the plane or because of their Italy holidays, and so we shut down quite quickly in February of the pandemic.
And so, how many staff members do you have in South Africa?
We have just around 400.
Okay, and you're still at that campus
in Madrid.
Okay.
Correct.
And so just talk to me about in the HR function. I mean, how did you step up and work out that COVID working arrangements?
So in a weird way, tech companies, I think, were better prepared for remote work. So we had had a history of people working in some form of hybrid situation anyway.
Okay.
And so we had people who, when they had thinking work to do or planning work to do anyway, used to work remotely. And as a global organization, there were elements of our organization that allowed you to work abroad or work remotely anyway. And a small percentage of our organization, by the way, have global resources who sit across countries. So already would have worked remotely full-time anyway. So the switchover for us was actually not a complex one. We were very quickly able to say to people, gather up your belongings, we are moving you home. Okay? The complexity, of course, that we had to deal with, as every organization needed to deal with, was that people weren't all geared to be able to work from their kitchen table constantly and without interruption because kids were home, partners were home, trying to get dogs. Dogs were home. And so theoretically the switch wasn't difficult. What we found was that employees struggled with the change, as everyone did. Secondly, comfort, no ergonomic chairs and tables, no sound, soundproof rooms, etc. And of course the constant interruptions. But I would say that we were able to navigate that much quicker than most organizations. And we did it more successfully, quite quickly. From an HR perspective, we then could spend a lot of time on care, on connection, on meaningful outreach to ensure that people were okay. And again, because we are part of a global organization and Africa, for example, is in the EMEA region, we had employees that were also 3 months ahead of us in terms of COVID, Italy, Spain, etc.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we could learn from them quite quickly and see what they did. In the Africa scenario, we were able to set up a war room quite quickly, be able to pull in resources in terms of our a broader organization to say, how do we want to do things with our employees? Looking back, thinking back, I think one of the biggest frustrations were chairs, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I can't sit in this chair. I don't have a comfortable chair. But very, very quickly, we were able to get out.
Did you give them chairs?
We didn't.
Okay, yeah. We didn't get them either. Yeah.
We didn't give chairs. It became a 2-year conversation about chairs.
Okay.
But we managed to do many other things, We had incredible partners in terms of our healthcare providers, et cetera, who just really, really stepped up and were able to make the experience, though devastating for everybody, one which was quite tolerable in our organization.
Did you get it?
I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't.
I didn't.
Amazing. I'm not sure if I got it, but I felt very sick at one point. So Genevieve, and what does it look like now? I mean, in 2023, I mean, are you still in a hybrid kind of situation, or?
Theoretically, we're in a hybrid situation, correct? Our board, about 9-10 months ago, came out with a policy around anywhere, any place, any time, in terms of the global business, and allowed us the flexibility of operationalizing that in each geography in a way that it made sense. Okay, so in the Africa market unit, we've kind of agreed to a 50% hybrid scenario. We're not quite there yet. We have found that more often than not, people are working much more from home and much less from the office. So I'd say we're in pretty much a similar situation as many organizations at the moment, where we had a lot of people complaining about I'm uncomfortable at home and there's no privacy. Now it's kind of, I don't want to be battling potholes, power outages, traffic lights, 2 hours commuting. And so it's kind of hard getting people back. And I guess that's just, again, part of the change psychology. It takes people quite a bit of time to move back. I don't anticipate 100%.
Yeah, the world has changed. I mean, the world has moved on. I mean, but I mean, so, obviously everyone has their number that they have to get to. And the South African SAP organization is mainly a sales one.
Correct.
And, but I mean, how do you actually manage that hybrid workforce? I mean, I mean, some people, and I mean, what kind of metrics do you put in place to manage them? And I mean, there's obviously some roles that have to be in the office. And I mean, can you just talk to me a bit about that?
So interestingly, for us, customer facing is much more important than in office, right?
Okay.
So for us, it's if we have the choice between you being in the office and being at customer, we want you to be at the customer.
Yeah.
So both for the sales part of the organization and the services part of the organization, customer facing wins the day.
Sure.
Okay. For the support functions, of course, being in office does help because it's just simpler if we can collaborate, coordinate, co-create in a mutual space. What we are finding is that, and this is really perhaps quite unique to SAP, we start from the premise of we trust our employees to self-manage and we hire professionals. So we don't attempt.
And you pay them very well, probably. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We don't micromanage our employees. We do not attempt to manage how many hours you work a day or, where you do that. What we attempt to manage is output. And it's very simple in an organization our size to be able to tell who's working and who isn't.
Yeah.
Okay. And trust becomes the foundation for all other relationships at work. So, of course, we have a mechanism where if you're not doing what you are doing, we'll manage the individual, but we don't try and manage the broader collective because of individual problem areas. We deal with those problem areas as they occur, and they do occur in small numbers.
Sure.
But by and large, we trust you to do your job, go do your job, tell us if there's a problem. And of course, we've had to up managerial skill, right? we've had to say, managers, you now have a different role. Okay, you have to connect more frequently. You have to understand if there are problems. You have to deal with problems as they arise, because some of those won't be performance problems. Some of them will just be connection problems. Some of them will be communication problems. And those are the things that you are now going to have to deal with. Tenacity, a little bit more grit, understanding that things feel a little more disjointed when you aren't all in the same space, So I think that putting trust at the foundation of the hybrid conversation means that we don't have to have conversations about time.
And I mean, you often hear people talk about culture, and that is a bit of a strange thing for me. I mean, how would you characterize SAP's culture if you had to, other than that trust part?
Sure. So you know that we've come through a bit of a history over the last couple of years. We've had our own ups and downs in the organization, as have many South African organizations. And it resulted in us needing to rebuild culture in the organization. And by that, I mean we had to, with awareness and consciousness, say, what is it that we want our employees to believe and understand about the organization, so that we could build sustainability. And that focused on 3 areas: trust, transparency, and teamwork. That's really critical in an organization that has 120,000 people globally. Okay. So if we have the base right, which is trust, the second is transparency. In other words, say what you are doing and do what you say, okay, so that people are able to walk the talk. And that's strongly set in our values as an organization. So we use the phrase, tell it like it is, okay? So people have the ability to be transparent and speak truth to power in a coherent way. And then the last is teamwork. We have a highly, highly matrixed organization. In fact, more so than I've seen in many other organizations I've worked in. And a highly matrixed organization means that you have to understand that you cannot keep your head down and stay in your bubble. You have to be able to work across functional areas in the business as if you are one team, even though you aren't. Because if you don't do that, you create complexity in the organization that it can't deal with. So those are the 3 components of culture in the Africa part of the business. And we have deliberately built that post some of the things we've had to deal with as a business, And I think what we see today is a much healthier business who are able to deal with quite a bit of complexity, quite a bit of change. Frustrations happen all the time. But when someone says, let's have a values discussion, we know exactly where they're going. We know exactly what they want to talk about. And within reason, I have to say that it works. There are times, of course, things fall apart, without a doubt.
Sure.
But that has been the basis of our sustainability model.
Yeah, you did have some headwinds late, a year or 2 ago, but you do seem to have negotiated that. And I mean, I say SAP, I mean, I suppose it's the same as IBM. No one ever got fired for buying SAP, It's just it's in so many organizations, public sector. I mean, how many customers do you have actually, globally or here? Or
I couldn't answer intelligently. It changes every day. Okay. But I can tell you that probably 70 to 80% of Fortune 500 companies use SAP.
Okay.
So it's significant.
And what are these customers looking for? I mean, there's obviously this big catchword of, digitization, or digital transformation, or, and I suppose it would be also the kind of business-led conversation. They're trying to create efficiencies. There's probably some automation in there. But what are the couple of things that the companies are looking to do, and how are you helping them?
Sure. So I think that SAP's draw card is to be able to recognize that in complex enterprises, there is a value in creating some standardization, some digitization, some economies of scale, okay? But also a simplification of processes so that we can start to, at a much more fundamental level, free up thinking time in an organization. Take it away from the transactional and move it into the strategic, okay? The problems that face organizations currently are massive problems. They're wicked problems around the future, whether that's around AI, whether that's around climate change, whether that's around sustainability. And if we journey correctly, we are able to take away the transactional components that frankly should just be standardized and managed with the click of a button, right? To be able to take away the volumes of work in the organization, the lack of standardization, the kind of subjectivity, fix those things and free up time for people to think about the real problems in the organization, the real challenges that organizations face, not just in Africa, but globally, And so for many organizations, and we saw this, by the way, also during COVID, organizations that were already solid, functioning organizations were better able to cope with the level of change that happened overnight in the pandemic, compared to organizations who weren't. So almost stabilizing, getting those roots in place, standardizing them, making sure they work effectively and efficiently so that leadership can actually spend time thinking about the complex problems in their business.
We don't use SAP here at this company. We're a bit small, but so you plug in your systems to a company's finance function, and it'll give you analytics, it'll give you suggestions, it'll give you forecasts.
Can you imagine what my tech people are thinking if they hear me say you'll just plug it in? Probably not. So I think part of, again, the difference with SAP is, and of course it's iterative, okay, is a certain level of design that is suitable for a particular organization. And remember, we are talking about complex organizations, right? So it's not a plug-and-play model, sadly, there's a lot of needing to understand how the systems, the policies, the processes work in an organization, and being able to build the systems that allow for those things to happen. So, it's probably very different if you are in retail versus whether you are in banking versus whether you are in the health sector.
So it's not one size fits all.
It's not a one size fits all, because how you procure, how you manage staff, it will be different in those environments. And the benefit of the system being able to be customized to that. Okay, so of course some fundamentals exist around its coding, but it's about building it for that particular organization. And the journey, of course, is to be able to say, where's an organization today? Where do they see themselves in 4, 5, 6 years' time, 10 years' time in terms of their digital journey, and helping them plot that, okay, so that they remain operational today, get better, see the benefits, embed those changes, and start to build capacity in the business, by figuring out which of those areas need to be centralized, standardized, digitized.
So you want the customer to basically, a failed implementation is not going to look good on anyone's, So you actually want the customer to take control of your platform and use it themselves, and, you don't want to hold their hand for the rest of your lives.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah.
Okay, no one wants that.
Yeah.
And as the models and as the customer grows in terms of their expertise and their changing environment, to be able to build on the base that they have created. It serves no one if you buy a product and then don't use it.
Yeah.
That's never the idea.
Yeah. So just speaking of expertise, I know that you have just done quite an extensive report on skills, and I was looking through it earlier today, and I saw that it's no surprise that cyber and analytics are the two skills that are in most need in, it was across your South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria. That's what the markets you concentrated on here. So specifically looking at the local market, I mean, why do you think we aren't producing, or first of all, I mean, why do you think we're not producing enough of these people?
So I think, interestingly, tech organizations are at the cutting edge of thinking, right? They know what's coming down the road. But weirdly, the people who are in charge of education and skills development, whether that be schools, universities, etc., are often lagging, right? So they potentially haven't caught up with the conversation around cyber or big data or the things we need in a new world of work. So there's a gap anyway between what schools and universities prepare for versus what organizations need today and tomorrow. That gap is quite big, and one that needs to be, of course, overlapped. And we make some effort in terms of our university alliances to be able to close that gap so that we connect those things much more closely. So that's the first reason. There's just a natural lag. I think the second thing is that tech doesn't always say where it's going. It goes where it goes. And we are seeing a pace and a rate of skill development in the tech space that has been pretty amazing, in terms of pace. So we're learning as we're going too. And so there isn't a skill pool that's available. We're needing to grow it as we make these changes. We have to see where our own organizations are, what we are developing and designing, and then building the tech expertise at the same time. Now, of course, in Africa, it's slightly different because we are the sales and delivery function for Africa. We are not the labs, so we don't do the lab development. But of course, we need implementers. We need people who can take our systems, put them into our customers, help to understand where that customer journey is, and give them the benefit of what a system of this nature can do within a secure environment there for the cyber tech, right? But our ability to be able to say, look at the reporting functions, look at the data analytics you can use, look at the things you can pull from the system, which before would have taken you months to do, which you can now do at the click of a button. So I think it's lag time.
So, I mean, it might be a bit unfair of me to ask you, what you think can be done. I mean, but if you were the president of the country, I mean, what
a job nobody wants.
What do you think we can do as a country to get more people into the pipeline?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there are much more qualified people who have talked about this, right? So I think that for me, without a doubt, schools have to focus much more, on the maths and the science, because the tech skills come out of that, and it's tech at every level. It's not just about coding, etc., etc. So schooling and universities have a role to play in that, and we are putting too few through the system. That's the reality. We have hundreds of thousands of jobs in Africa that require tech skill for which there is no tech experience. The second thing, I guess, is for organizations such as ours and other corporates to invest in building that skill. So yes, it is small, but that's also about access. We need to be able to, and many organizations are providing bursaries, funding the growth of a pool of young people who can come into the sector and who have those interests and abilities and who want to grow, but who potentially don't have the means to do that. So whether that's through bursaries, through internships, etc., we need to do that. And then the third thing, because that just getting a degree is only the first step, is to create real job opportunities and the possibility of absorbing people into entry-level jobs into the organization. Because once we have them in the organization, we can use our internal capacity to train, develop, upskill and fast-track people into the organizations. But there has to be an entry point. And that's where I think some of the struggle is happening, is to create enough entry-level jobs in organizations to be able to have the pool that you then skill up. And then I think last, and maybe not popularly, is to have a value discussion in the organization about providing skills for the country and the continent, not just for your organization. And so sometimes do more than you have to, do more than is required of you, because the whole ecosystem benefits if these skills exist. Yeah. So if you have the capacity to train 100 people instead of 20, do the 100 people. It benefits the whole ecosystem.
Indeed. Yeah, and corporates do need to. They've got if they've got the capability. I mean the
bandwidth.
Yeah.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
We absolutely should do that.
And just finally, what's your diversity? What's your gender split at SAP South Africa?
So we are probably the flagship around diversity in SAP globally. We have a 50-50 split on gender, and we've only achieved that, I'd say, over the last 5 or 6 years. We have a majority female executive. 4 out of 5 are female, which is really quite unusual, and this permeates through our organization. So for us, we've been very deliberate. We've said which are the jobs we think we want to ring fence, and think about in terms of gender and race. So by the way, we are also 50% Black organization, which in tech is unusual, And so we are making strides in this area because we know how important it is to get this right. And I'd say it has been probably the one component of the organization that has created a different culture and dynamic in the business, compared to many others I've been in. So I'd say we've done it well.
How did you do it though? Was it around hiring, or did you?
So a number of things. Firstly, internal hiring.
Yes.
Okay, we were able to say this job will be ring-fenced around gender, which, by the way, is also one of our regional priorities as SAP. So, absolutely, these jobs, these roles, ring-fenced. Okay, we've worked really hard on our employment equity stats to be able to say where do we want to be over a period of 5 years, and then we've actively pursued that. And I think that we've also had the benefit, I think, when you have a couple of women in leadership roles in the organization, it creates a impetus for others to put up their hands and say, I think I can do that. Now, women in tech have tough roles, okay? And we tend to lose them at a senior level because it's fast-paced, it's hard work, people work long hours, it's very stretched, And by creating a executive of women, we've also been able to showcase how you can balance those two things and how we are willing to balance those in our organization without losing productivity or any of those concerning areas. And I think it's had a ripple effect through the business, where women now put up their hands much more frequently for leadership roles, mid-management roles. So we're having fun doing it.
That is a good news story.
Indeed.
Thank you very, very much, Genevieve. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's been great. Take care.
Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.